In this video, we're going to look at how to use the scaffolding generation feature of Ruby on Rails. Now, what scaffolding is it's a automatic framework generation for our model so that we can have some basic CRUD access, create, read, update, and destroy for a particular model. It doesn't really involve any of the relationships very deeply. And it's meant really as a starting point for your application. It's not going to generate a full-fledged application, so it's not going to do away with programmers quite yet. So let's go ahead and look at a generated scaffold using our Movie Critic application that we've been playing around with on prior videos. And we'll go ahead and say generate scaffold, and I want to generate one for the comments. So I'm going to say comment is my model, and then comment is my controller. And the controller could have been named anything, but I prefer to keep it simple for our example here. It doesn't have to be named comment, but it will in this case. So we'll go ahead and generate this. And it's going to generate some folders. If they don't exist, it's going to create them. See, like this views comment folder did not exist. It created that. And most of these folders already exist. And we come down here and it's going to create some view files. You see it skipped the model generation because that model already existed. And then we have the controller gets generated. And finally down here we have the comment RHTML layout gets generated. So now if we pop over here, let's take a look at the controller. Here's our controller. Now the first method in here is our index method, and that corresponds to index HTML, like in a regular HTML web server application where index is what gets called. You can change this behavior. But to start with, this is what is going to get called by default when you call for the comment controller, and we'll show you that in a second. And inside that method, it's going to call the list method, which is right here. The list method sets a couple of instant variables to the paging comments. Now, this is a method call that creates paging of our comments with 10 per page, and we could change that to 20 or whatever we wish, and sets up these instant variables to be equal to that page nation. The second thing up here then that gets called is this render, and the render that gets executed is list. And if we go over to our view, this is the list RHTML that gets generated. So here we have the RHTML with embedded Ruby inside of it that will march through and print out the comments. Now, a couple detailed things to look at here. First off, how it actually auto-generates some of these columns and column names. It uses embedded Ruby for loop, so we have for column in, pretty standard Ruby syntax of a loop that's looping through a particular array of information. In this case, it's comment columns. So that's how we're getting the column name, and we get the human name. That's a method that prints out the name in a human readable form, and it populates our header of our table with that. And then we do the same down here. This is the meat that prints out the actual content. And we have an embedded Ruby for loop here for comments. So for a comment inside of comments, because comments was set to all the comments, 10 per page. And then inside of that loop, we go through each column and print them out and put them into the particular cells. Now let's take a look at what this looks like. So first, we've got to start our server. And then we'll pop over to our web browser. And I got to put in a controller name, and it was comment. So there's the one comment that's in there. And let's go look at the source code of this. And the major thing to look at is down here. This was the table row headers that were generated. So it went out, got the human readable form from the database for comment, created at, updated at, and human readable basically stripped out those underscores in here and did the uppercase first letter. And then the second thing that gets generated through the nested for loops is we have the table row for each comment, and then we have the actual columns for the comment. Now, if we wanted to add another comment, let's go ahead and click New. That was auto-generated. These fields were generated for this. This was another good movie. And I'll leave these the same. I'll create it. And now we have two. Let's go look at that source code real quick. And you can see here's our two embedded for loops generated this one, and then it generated this one. So that's essentially what scaffolding does. It takes care of all of this business, automatically creating the code for us. You have some automatic links generated for us where we can do new, or we can go up here. You can see these links: show, edit, destroy. And these were, again, all generated by the scaffolding for us. This is a good way to get started, and you can go in here and play with this code and understand what it does a little bit better by utilizing this scaffolding to kind of get you going. That's the paradigm of scaffolding. In future videos, we'll actually go in depth of each of these actions, particularly when we hit the views section. We'll go through each of these items, specifically the form helpers and then the links.